She heard the wagon stop out front. Her husband's boots struck the dirt like thunder. A second set followed, heavier, dragging. The scent of smoke and leather filled the doorway. She gripped the frame, heart pounding, though she could not see them. Then came his voice, flat, final. "She is yours now. No explanation. No goodbye. Just a trade, like cattle or land. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Comment below. My name is Clara Mae Stillwell, and I was born with sharp eyes and a teacher's heart. Folks used to say I could read a child's soul quicker than a page of poetry. I taught little ones their letters in a one-room schoolhouse near Cedar Bluff, where the wind whispered secrets through pine and prairie. Then came the fever. It took our crops, my strength, and finally my sight. I was 25. And just like that, everything I thought I was drifted away, like smoke in winter. After that, no school would take me back. Children were moved to another district. I heard them crying when they left. Some of them even hugged me like I was dying. In a way, I was. My father, Sam Stillwell, was a mulebacker with a soft spot for whiskey and a fear of weakness. He told me gently once that no man would marry a blind woman. Then, not so gently that no man should. He was of the old world, where usefulness was worth and worth was sight. When he passed from a busted lung, I was left with dust and debt. Our land was swallowed up by the bank before the snow melted off the fence posts. That was when Eldon came. He was a neighbor from 5 miles downriver. Tall, hard-eyed, never cruel, but never kind either. He spoke in sentences so short they seemed carved in stone. He said he needed a cook, someone quiet. Said he did not care about my eyes. I was 27 when I married him. He never once raised a hand to me. But he never raised a voice in joy either. Our homestead was a cold place, clean, functional, and hollow. Eldon saw me like he saw his tools, things that served a purpose. He worked cattle. I tended the hearth by touch. I learned to feel the wind's mood, the sound of a rope swinging, the difference between silence and threat. I stitched by memory, measured flour with my hands, and listened. Always listened. And in that listening, I heard all I needed. I heard the change in Eldon's boots when he was angry. I heard the coins shift in his pockets when he lied. I heard the saddle creak too often, late at night, when he said he was working fence lines. I heard him speak softer to the mare than he ever did to me. Still, I tried to believe there was something under his coldness. Some root that would grow if I stayed long enough. But roots need rain. And Eldon was drought. The day before he sold me, he came in smelling of whiskey and desperation. He stood in the doorway a long time. I asked if he was all right. He said, "You do not belong to me no more." I thought he meant he was leaving. I did not know he had already taken money. That he had arranged it like livestock sale. Me, in exchange for debt forgiveness on a loan I never even knew about. The next morning, I woke to the sound of harness leather and boots. And when I stepped to the doorframe, the light I could not see burned behind my eyes like fire. I smelled tobacco and dust and heard a new voice. Calm. Steady. Eldon said 5 words I will never forget. She is yours now. No goodbye. No, I am sorry. Just boots walking away. Just silence, broken only by the man who stayed. That is where my story truly begins. Not with the fever, not with the marriage, but with a man who did not buy me for what I could do, but for what he believed I still was. The house I was brought to sat higher in the hills, where the wind cut sharper and the coyotes sang louder. I could feel the difference through my boots, the earth firmer, the air thinner, the silence deeper. That man, Bo Redding, said little when we arrived. He helped me down from the wagon with a hand like weathered oak, steady, strong, and strangely gentle. Step here, he said just once. Then silence. Inside, the house was wider than Eldon's. Smelled of pine, tobacco, and old books. But still, I felt like I was floating, untethered, unwanted. Like I had been passed along like a parcel with no address. Bo showed me to a small room off the main hall. This is yours, he said. Then he left me alone. For days, I wandered like a ghost. I mapped the house with my hands. The edge of the kitchen table, the low shelf near the hearth, the way the hallway opened toward the back porch. I learned the wood's creaks. Learned which steps whined and which stayed silent. I found the stove by scent and heat, burned my fingers once on the kettle. I did not cry. Pain reminded me I was still here. I spoke little. And Bo even less. He brought wood in the mornings. I heard him chopping, grunting softly, like the sound belonged more to the axe than to him. He worked with purpose, but not haste. Never slammed a door, never barked a command. Just quiet steps and presence. He never asked me to clean or cook, but I did anyway. Not out of duty, but out of fear. If I was not useful, would he trade me next? If I was not obedient, would he leave me to rot in that little room? One afternoon, I spilled a jar of beans across the floor. They scattered like bullets. I dropped to my knees, groping in silence, ashamed of the tears that slipped out. Bo stood nearby. I waited for the sting of a slap, a shout. But all I heard was the soft thump of him kneeling. His hands joined mine, wordless, gathering beans. That night, I sat on the porch, wrapped in a quilt that smelled of cedar. I listened to the wind whistle through the grass and wondered how long I had been waiting to exhale. Still, the fear clung to me like a second skin. In the mornings, I woke with the sun warming my face, but I stayed in bed, listening. Would today be the day he told me to leave? Or worse, to earn my keep in ways no woman should be forced to? But those words never came. Bo never touched me without asking. Never entered a room without knocking. When I thanked him, he just said, "No need." As if kindness should not be surprising. It made me suspicious. I had learned that men like Eldon could be polite when they wanted something. And the quieter a man was, the more careful you had to be. Silence could hide 100 sharp edges. So I tested Bo left dishes undone one evening. Stayed in bed late the next. Said sharp words when he asked if I needed anything. But he never rose. Never pushed. Just gave me space. "You are free here," he said once. But I did not know what freedom tasted like. I had swallowed duty and silence for so long. It was all I knew how to chew. At night, I lay in the dark, hands clasped on my chest like I was in a coffin. I listened to the coyotes. Counted the boards in the ceiling by echo. Wondered if I could ever feel like something more than an abandoned possession. One night, I woke from a dream, sweating, gasping, calling for my father. I sat up, heart pounding, unable to remember what had scared me. Just a vast blackness pressing down. Then I heard it, slow, heavy steps outside my door. A pause. Then a soft knock. "You all right?" Bo's voice. I could not speak. Just nodded. He waited. Then slowly walked away. He did not open the door. Did not ask questions. That was the first night I believed maybe. Just maybe. He did not see me as a burden. Or a trade. Or a tool. Still, it would take more than quiet kindness to undo a lifetime of being unseen. The first time I truly met Bo Redding was not the day he took me in, nor the evening he gathered beans beside me. It was weeks later, when the air turned colder and the silence between us grew too thick to breathe through. I had just finished folding the laundry by touch, lining up seams and matching socks by worn texture. I heard his boots pause outside the parlor, then the creak of a chair. Something in the way he sat told me his shoulders were heavy. The kind of heaviness that does not come from cattle or fence posts. I stepped into the room slowly, hands brushing the wall. "Are you ill?" I asked. "No, ma'am," he said. Then after a long pause, "Just tired." "Tired of me?" I asked before I could stop myself. The silence that followed was colder than any Wyoming wind. "I did not buy you to use you, Clara. You bought me all the same." His voice stayed low. "I paid off a man's debt. That is all. The law would not let you be free unless someone claimed you." I swallowed hard. "And what do I owe you now?" He stood. I could feel it in the shift of air, the tension in the floorboards. For a moment, I braced myself. But then, his voice cracked like a leaf in fall. "Nothing. You owe me nothing." I turned to go, pride stiff in my spine. But something about the way he said those words, soft and sad, like he had to convince himself, stopped me. "Why me?" I asked. He exhaled through his nose. I heard him sit again, slower this time. "My wife died 3 winters ago. Fever. Took my boy too. After that, the house got too quiet. I worked the land. Ate off tin. Talked to no one. Thought maybe I was already dead." He paused. I sat slowly across from him, resting my hands in my lap. "One day I went into town," he continued, "and heard Eldon talking like you were something to get rid of. Like a sack of potatoes gone sour. Said you were blind and worthless, but someone might take pity. I felt my face burn. So you pitied me." "No," he said gently. "I recognized you." That word stopped me. I whispered, "Recognized? I know what grief sounds like. What loneliness feels like. I saw you once, years ago. You were teaching a boy how to hold a pen. Your eyes were clear then. You smiled like the sun was behind your teeth. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. I did not remember that moment. But he did. You remembered me?" He chuckled just once. You were the first person I saw after the war that made me think the world still had good in it. I covered my mouth, trying to stop the sob that escaped. Not because he made me cry, but because no one had ever told me I had been something good to them. Bo stood again. I know I am no poet, Clara. I do not know how to fix what others broke. But I do know this house is yours now as much as mine. You are not owned. You are not owed. You are simply welcome. My hands trembled. I reached out into the dark between us. He did not take my hand. Instead, he placed something in it, a flower. Wild sage, soft and fragrant. He said, I thought maybe you would want to know what color smells like. That night, I sat alone on the porch long after Bo had gone to bed. I held that sage to my chest and breathed it in. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as a blind woman. Not as a burden. But as a soul, alive and worth remembering. After that night with the sage, something shifted. Not fast like a thunderstorm, but slow, like spring creeping back into the soil. Bo and I still lived in quiet, but it was a softer kind now. A silence filled with breath and presence rather than distance. I began listening to him with different ears. I noticed how his boots sounded heavier at the end of long days. How he hummed low when feeding the horses. How he paused at the kitchen door each morning, as if making sure I was breathing. He never said much, but what he did say came like stones dropped in water. Simple, steady, making ripples that lasted. Still, I wrestled with doubt. Trust is hard-earned when your past is filled with being passed along. I kept waiting for him to change, to reveal some hidden motive, some cruel demand. I had seen what men were capable of. So when I heard him talking to someone out by the barn one morning, his voice sharp, unfamiliar, I froze. I crept to the back door and pressed my ear against the frame. A stranger's voice responded, gruff and impatient. I said I will pay double. You are sitting on gold. Not interested, Bo said. You cannot hide a woman like that out here forever. Blind or not, she has value. You think I do not know who she is? Bo's tone turned to ice. Get off my land. The man spit. I heard it hit the ground. You are a fool, Redding. Everyone knows you are keeping another man's wife like a treasure box with no key. I will be back. Silence followed. Then slow, steady steps retreating into the dirt. My hands were fists. My heart beat like a war drum. Bo came inside not long after. I stood in the center of the kitchen, trembling. Who was that? I asked. He paused. No one that matters. Did he ask about me? Bo hesitated. He knew of you. Knew Eldon gave you up. Said he could offer more. And what did you say? He stepped closer. I felt the warmth of him, solid, earthy. I told him you were not for sale. I wanted to believe him. Every part of me screamed to believe him. But fear does not listen to reason. It listens to patterns. And patterns told me that men always have a price. And women always get paid. Later that evening, I heard Bo outside chopping wood. The rhythm was wrong, angry, uneven. It scared me more than the stranger's voice. I stepped out and walked barefoot across the dirt. My hands followed the split-rail fence until I reached him. He stopped when he heard me. I am sorry, he said. I should have told you. I nodded. I heard it all. He sat on the chopping block, breath rough. I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. But I should have known your past. It does not stay buried. I sat beside him. Neither does yours, I reckon. He looked down. I was a soldier once. Did terrible things. Watched worse. When the war ended, I came home to silence. Thought if I kept working, kept moving, maybe the noise in my head would stop. And did it? Not until you showed up. We sat in silence. I placed my hand near his, not on it, just near. Bo whispered, I am no hero, Clara. I am not asking for one, I replied. I am just asking for someone who does not trade me. His hand moved just slightly closer. Our fingers brushed. He did not take mine. But he did not pull away. That night, I lay in bed and thought of all the ways people touch each other. With hands. With silence. With choices. And though we had barely touched, I had never felt so near to someone. Still, the stranger's words lingered. The truth was out. The town would whisper. Men would come with offers. And I would have to choose, again, whether to believe in something I had never been given before. Kindness without a catch. The first time I laughed again, it came out like a cough. I was sitting on the porch shelling peas into a wooden bowl, hands working by memory. Bo was nearby, sanding a broken chair leg, humming that same low tune he always carried. Half melody, half memory. A grasshopper landed on my hand and startled me. I yelped, flung the thing straight into the bowl, and peas went flying everywhere. The sound they made, tiny clatters like falling marbles, was so ridiculous, I could not help it. I laughed. Loud and sudden. Bo stopped sanding. I heard him turn toward me. Then came something even rarer. He laughed too. That porch, so used to silence, filled with a sound I thought I had buried with my father and my sight. It felt like water breaking through dry earth. After that, we began speaking more, not about the past, but about things that filled the quiet. I told him how I used to braid my students' hair during reading hour, how I could tell which boy had stolen an apple by the way he shuffled his boots. Bo told me about the time his horse ran off with a bundle of laundry tied to the saddle, how the town laughed for a week seeing his drawers up in the trees. Each story stitched something between us. One evening, I sat on the porch with my bare feet on the step, feeling the breeze play between my toes. Bo joined me, quiet as always. He handed me a peach, soft and ripe. "I brought you something sweet," he said. I smiled. "Thank you." He paused. "You always say thank you, even when you do not have to." I shrugged. "Well, kindness deserves naming. That way it grows." He was quiet a long time, then said, "Do you believe people can start over?" I did not answer right away. I thought of Eldon, of the man who came to buy me, of the fear I still woke with some nights. "I believe," I said slowly, "that starting over is not about forgetting. It is about choosing to keep going, even when nothing makes sense." He nodded. I could hear the motion in the way his breath moved. "Then I reckon I am trying," he said. So was I. One morning, he guided me out to the edge of the pasture. "There is something I want you to see," he said, almost shyly. "I do not see," I reminded him. "You do," he replied. "Just different." He placed my hand on a fence post. Then gently, he helped me climb up onto the lower rail. The wind carried the smell of wildflowers and fresh hay. Then he pressed something into my palm. A newborn lamb. Soft, warm, still damp with life. I cradled it like porcelain. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I could feel its heart fluttering like a bird inside a cage. "I thought," Bo said softly, "you might want to hold something that had not yet been broken by the world." I held that lamb for a long time. Its warmth sank into my bones. Later that night, I asked him something I had been carrying like a stone in my chest. "Why do you wait?" He was quiet. Then, wait for what? To touch me. To ask more of me. To expect things. His voice was steady. "Because I want to be someone you walk toward, not someone you run from." I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. It stayed there. No tremble. No retreat. Just warmth. Solid, strong. I did not need eyes to know this man had become a shelter. Not flashy. Not loud. But a steady roof in a storm. And though my past still whispered in the dark, it no longer roared. That was the night I allowed myself to wonder if perhaps love could feel like rest instead of work. It happened on a Sunday. The air was dry, the sky wide, and Bo had just come in from the barn smelling of hay and horses. I had made biscuits by feel, golden flaky, with too much salt because I misjudged the jar. We laughed about it. He ate 3 anyway. Then came the knock. Not at the front door. The back one, the one we rarely used. A sharp, angry sound that did not wait for permission. Bo stood, shoulders tense. I rose too, instinctively moving toward the wall where I kept my cane. My heart knew before my mind did. Eldon's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Clara, come on out." The blood in my veins turned to ice. Bo stepped between me and the door, his voice low and solid. "You are not welcome here." Eldon snorted. "You are keeping my wife, Redding. That makes her stolen property." I took a breath and said loud and clear, "I am not yours." Eldon's boots thudded closer on the porch. "You married me before God and state. You think a debt clears a vow." Bo opened the door just enough to block his path. "She was never yours. You traded her like a mule." "I took care of her." Bo's voice cracked like thunder. "No, you abandoned her." I heard a scuffle, wood boots shifting, fists ready but not yet thrown. I stepped forward, found Bo's arm, and gripped it. "I want to speak," I said. Bo hesitated, then stepped aside. I stood in the doorway, light behind me, shadows in front. "You gave me away, Eldon. Do not come here pretending I was ever anything but weight around your neck." His voice turned low. "You were blind. You could not keep up. And yet I survived," I said. "I am not yours. Not by law. Not by spirit. I belong to no one but the Lord." He spat on the ground. "You got no papers. No record of any proper transfer." Bo stepped forward. Then I will go into town tomorrow and make it legal. Eldon sneered. So you want her now? Want the blind burden? Bo did not flinch. She is not a burden. She is my choice. I heard Eldon step down from the porch. His boots crushed gravel. But his final words rang bitter and clear. You are a fool. Both of you. That woman was born broken, and you will carry the weight until it kills you. Then he was gone. But the wound he left lingered. Later that night, Bo sat quiet, rubbing his temples. I sat near the fire, hands folded. He is right, you know, I whispered. Bo turned sharply. About what? I was born to see. I lost that. I cannot help with the cattle. I cannot bear children, maybe. I cannot even cross the pasture without getting lost. Bo walked across the room and kneeled before me. You listen to me, Clara Mae, he said, voice low but sure. You are not broken. You are whole in ways men like him could never understand. Tears slipped from my eyes, but I kept speaking. My father said a blind woman was a burden to a man's name. Said I'd be lucky if anyone ever wanted me. Eldon only married me because the bank gave him a break for taking in a widow's daughter. And then he sold me like I was made of dust. Bo pressed my hand to his chest. His heartbeat was steady, warm. I did not come for you because I pitied you, he said. I came because I heard you were being thrown away, and I could not live in a world where that was allowed. I wept into my hands. For my father's words. For Eldon's trade. For every room I had ever been forgotten in. I am so tired, I whispered. Bo held my hands, not tight, not possessive, just sure. Then rest here, he said. And let me be the man who never walks away. But something inside me cracked that night. Not out of pain, but from something I had buried long ago. A belief I was allowed to want more. I left before the rooster crowed. No shoes, no cane, just a cloak around my shoulders and the cold biting through it. My steps were quiet, careful. I had memorized the layout of Bo's house, the distance from my room to the porch, from the porch to the edge of the path. After that, it was all guesswork. The wind told me which way was north. The slope of the ground told me when I was nearing the dry creek bed. I had no destination. I just knew I had to get away. Not from Bo, but from the fear that I was becoming dependent. That maybe Eldon had been right, that a man only takes in a woman like me if he wants something in return. Bo had said he wanted nothing, but he had also said he would file marriage papers. I had not agreed. He had not asked. Just like Eldon never asked. Just like my father never asked. My life had been a long thread of being handled, shifted, settled like dust across unfamiliar rooms. And now that I had tasted safety, I feared it would turn to control in disguise. I tripped over a root and fell hard, the world going black and soundless for a moment. My knee hit rock. My hand scraped earth. I stayed there, curled on my side, breath shallow, chest tight. I am not free, I whispered. I have never been free. Tears mixed with dust on my face. I lay there as the sun began to rise, warming my back while the cold soaked into my bones. In my mind, I saw my father's stern face. Heard Eldon's voice say blind burden. Felt Bo's hands, steady and good. But was it real? Or just another man playing caretaker? What if love was just another word for ownership? The questions crushed me. Back at the house, Bo woke to an empty room. He searched the barn, the pasture, then the hills. He called my name, first gently, then with panic laced through it. I did not answer. I did not want him to find me out of duty. I wanted someone to ask, not assume. To choose me, not because I was vulnerable, but because I was me. When the sun was high, I heard footsteps approach the creek bed. Bo's voice came next. Soft. Frightened. Clara? I did not speak. He crouched nearby. Please say something. Still, I said nothing. I was afraid my voice would shatter me. Then, quietly, he said, I thought maybe I had done something wrong. Something like him. I could not bear that. I turned my face toward the sound. He sighed. I told the county clerk we would file papers. I should not have done it without asking you. My voice came hoarse. You did not buy me, but you claimed me all the same. I know, he said. And I was wrong. He moved closer, not touching me. You do not have to be with me, he said. You do not owe me safety, or company, or care. I just want you to know, I will not lock the door behind you. I will keep it open. I wept, not because I was hurt, but because I had never been given the choice to walk away and be loved still. He stayed until my breathing calmed. Then he offered his hand, not to pull me up, but to hold if I wanted it. I took it. Together, we walked back in silence. The low point of my story was not when Eldon sold me. It was when I believed, even for a moment, that I had no say in my own worth. And yet, in that moment of despair, Beau's quiet presence said more than any preacher or promise ever could. I was not a thing to be saved. I was a woman who could choose. And he was a man who would wait. The next morning, the world smelled different. After the night in the creek bed, something in me had turned. Not hard or cold, but clear. Like river water after a flood. I still woke afraid. Still questioned the shape of my life. But I also felt something new in my chest. Choice. It whispered like a secret every time Beau stepped softly across the porch or asked, not ordered. Every time he paused near me and waited for me to reach, rather than reaching first. That morning, while folding laundry by the hearth, I heard him open the front door. I recognized the sound of paper in his hand, then the familiar weight of the stool shifting as he sat. "I went into town today," he said after a long silence. I stiffened. He continued gently, "But not to file anything." My hand stopped folding. The air felt still. "I spoke with the county clerk about your father's estate." I turned toward him, heart climbing my throat. "Why?" Beau's voice was slow, careful. "Because Eldon lied to you. He never told you your father left land in your name. 5 acres on the South Ridge. Said it was sold, but the deed never transferred. Your name is still on it." My knees gave slightly. I sat hard on the bench behind me. "My name," I whispered. Beau set the paper on the table. "You are not a woman who needs claiming, Clara. You are a woman with land. A legal name. A place that is yours by right." I reached out, and he placed the paper in my hands. My fingers traced the raised stamp, the ink, the shape of my name. "Why would Eldon hide this?" "Because power lies in ownership," Beau said. "He kept it from you to keep control." I shook my head, overcome. "I thought I had nothing." Beau's voice softened further. "You have always had something. You just needed someone to help you see it." That afternoon, I asked him to ride me to the ridge. The trail was slow, uneven. The horse's breath steamed in the cold, and Beau helped me dismount near the edge of a low hill. The wind carried the scent of pine and sage. I crouched and let my fingers touch the earth. It was rocky but rich. Wild grass sprouted between cracks. I could hear water trickling somewhere nearby, a spring maybe. "This is mine?" I asked. Beau stepped beside me. "Yours fully." I stood slowly. The wind lifted my hair. The sunlight warmed my cheeks. Something broke open inside me. Not grief. Not anger. But dignity. I was not a woman who had been passed along. I was a woman whose name still stood on paper, whose hands still knew the shape of good land, whose voice had been waiting to rise. Later that night, by firelight, I stood before Beau and said, "Thank you for showing me what I already had." He looked up from where he was oiling his boots. "You do not owe me thanks." "I know," I replied, "but I give it freely." He set the boots aside and faced me. I took his hand. Not because I had to. Not because I needed rescue. But because I saw him now, not as a man who saved me, but as a man who waited, who listened, who reminded me what strength already lived in my bones. "I want to stay," I said. He drew in a quiet breath. "Not because you gave me land, or peace, or safety, but because you gave me back to myself." He nodded, voice thick. "Then let us build something honest, Clara Mae. Not out of debt or fear, but out of choice." And so, in that quiet room, without a preacher or paper, we began again. The days that followed felt like planting season. Hope buried beneath the surface, waiting for sun and time. I had land now, a name on paper, and for the first time, I felt like I was growing into my own life. Beau and I did not rush. We did not speak vows or write letters to the court. We simply moved through each day like two people who had chosen to stay. That, to me, was sacred enough. We walked my land every other morning. He guided me down the slope and let me run my fingers across bark, stone, and tall grass. He described what he saw, the color of the sky, the shadows of clouds stretching across the hills. Not like a poet, but like a man who wanted me to see through his eyes. Then one evening, as the sun fell low, I stood up from dinner and said, "I want to use the land." Beau looked up. "For what?" I turned toward him, chin lifted. "A school. For children who cannot see. Or who are not wanted." His chair scraped back. "You want to teach again?" I nodded. I never stopped wanting. I just stopped believing I could. He stood slowly, walked over, and placed his hands on my shoulders. "Then we will build it. Together." The next morning, we rode into town. I wore my best dress, hair braided tight. Beau helped me up the steps to the courthouse. Inside, the clerk remembered my name from when Beau first inquired. "You come to sell?" he asked. "No," I replied. "I came to build." We registered the land officially under my name, Clara Mae Stillwell. Beau did not add his. He said the land was mine. The life we shared upon it, that would be ours. Word traveled fast. Some praised it. Others scoffed. "A blind schoolteacher?" one man whispered. Beau stood beside me, tall and unmoved. Better than most men who see just fine and still do not know what matters. We began clearing the ridge. Beau borrowed hands from neighbors. I listened to their voices, young, old, skeptical kind. I offered water, guidance, songs from memory to pass the time. Then came the girls. 2 of them, sisters, barely 10 and 12, left at the church doorstep with no family name and near blind from illness. The preacher sent word to us. I said yes before he finished the sentence. Beau made beds in the back room. I taught them to fold linens, to count steps, to pour water by ear. I told them, "Your hands will learn what your eyes forgot." One day, the youngest, Sadie, asked me, "Do you ever wish you could see again?" I smiled. I used to. But now, I think I see more than I ever did before. Because I did. I saw love in the way Beau checked the porch boards twice before letting them run outside. I saw grace in the quiet way he let me take charge of the classroom, even when townsfolk raised their brows. I saw strength in the mirror of my own heart, no longer cracked from being passed over, but shaped from surviving it. When the first lesson began, I stood in front of the girls and said, "You are not broken. You are beginning." The sound of their pencils scratching on slate was the sweetest music I ever heard. We hung a sign near the road, "Stillwell School for the Unseen." People stopped to stare. Some came to mock, but many stayed to listen. And by spring, more children arrived. Some could not see. Others were simply forgotten. But here they belonged. Just like I had learned to belong, not by being claimed, but by being chosen. By myself. And by a man who had waited in silence until I was ready to rise. I had once believed my life would be made up of shadows, narrow walls, cold rooms, and quiet steps. But now I stood each morning in a place of laughter, soft voices, and the smell of fresh bread and open fields. The Stillwell School became more than a house for lost children. It became a place of remembering, of rebuilding. And as the school took root in the earth, something took root in me too. Strength. Not the kind that roars. The kind that bends and rises again. The kind that has been through fire and knows its shape. There were hard days, of course. One winter, a boy named Caleb went missing in the pasture for hours. He had been trying to prove he could find the well on his own. I searched barefoot in the snow, shouting his name until my voice cracked. Beau found him huddled near the cedar grove, cold but safe. Later that night, Caleb whispered, "Miss Clara, you came for me." I held his face in my hands. Of course I did. But I got lost. So did I once, I said. But someone waited until I came back. That night, after the children were tucked in and the fire had burned low, Beau sat beside me with a letter in hand. "From the courthouse," he said. "Says Eldon is being charged for forged deeds and false debts. They want your statement." I took the letter slowly, my fingers tracing the seal. "I do not want revenge," I said. Beau nodded. "Then what do you want?" I thought for a moment. Truth. Not for him. For me. I want to close that door, not slam it. Just shut it gently. He kissed my forehead that night. The first time his lips had touched me. Not rushed. Not claimed. Just love, pure and quiet. The town began to change, too. Some of the same men who once scoffed at a blind woman building a school now sent their daughters to me. Mothers brought me apples. A few widows came to help teach sewing and cooking. The church gave us hymn books. The sheriff stopped by one afternoon to say, "Folks are watching you. You are giving them hope." Still, I never forgot the cost of becoming whole. Some nights, I woke with a start, feeling Eldon's voice on my skin, my father's silence in my throat. But Beau would be there, just breathing beside me. And I would lay my hand over his heart and listen. That was the new shape of safety, not a locked door, but a shared room. Not ownership, but presence. One warm Sunday, we gathered all the children outside under the cottonwood tree. I stood before them, Beau by my side, and said, "You are not unseen. You are not unwanted. This land, this house, this heart, it is yours now." The children clapped. Beau smiled so wide I could hear it in his breath. Later, as the sun dipped low, he took my hand and asked, "Do you still feel like a burden?" I turned to him. "No. I feel like a beginning." That night, I wrote a letter to the county clerk. I asked for my name to be placed not just on land, but as the founder of the Stillwell School for the Unseen. I signed it with my full name, Clara Mae Stillwell. No husband's last name, no man's permission. And yet, both stood by me every step. Together, we had rewritten the story. Have you ever found your voice after years of silence? Share your moment of strength in the comments. The letter came wrapped in official ribbon, sealed in red wax. Bo brought it to me after supper, quiet as ever. I sat at the table with my hands resting on the smooth envelope, heart steady now. Not afraid, just ready. It was a summons. The trial was set. Eldon had been arrested in a neighboring county for fraud, deceit, and unlawful sale of property, including the land left to me by my father. They wanted my statement. I stood slowly. Then I will go. Bo asked, "Are you sure?" I nodded. It is time. We traveled 3 days by wagon. The children stayed with the widows who now helped with the school. The little ones cried when we left, and I promised, "We will be back before you finish your alphabet." The courthouse was tall and echoing. I could feel the eyes as I entered, women whispering, men quieting as my cane tapped the floor. Eldon was already seated. I could feel his presence in the hush that followed. He still wore boots that stomped when he walked, but his voice had lost its thunder. They asked me to speak. I stood, took a breath, and began. My name is Clara Mae Stillwell. I was born with sight and raised to believe that my worth came from being seen. When I lost my vision, I thought I lost my life. But I see now that I had only begun. The judge asked about the land. I told him my father left it to me, and that Eldon forged papers to hide it. He said I was a burden, I continued. And then he sold me. Not as a wife. Not as a person. As property. The room stayed quiet. But I am not a thing to be traded. I am not a woman who fades in the dark. I built a school for children like me. Children who were called worthless. We are not worthless. We are seeds that needed different light. Eldon did not speak. His lawyer muttered apologies and spoke of hardship. But I had said what needed saying. When I stepped down, Bo took my hand. We walked out into the sun, and I exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. The court ruled in my favor. The land was affirmed as mine. The deed recorded properly. Eldon was sentenced and fined. But that was not the victory. The victory was that I did not run from that courtroom. I stood, spoke, lived. Back home, the children welcomed us with songs and pie. Bo kissed me on the porch in front of them all, with one hand on my cheek and the other resting gently on my shoulder. He said, "You did more than survive, Clara. You showed the world you are a force." I smiled. "No," I said. I showed myself. That night, under stars I could not see but had come to feel, I sat with the girls on the porch. Sadie leaned her head on my arm. "Miss Clara?" "Yes, love?" "Are you proud of your story now?" I pulled her close. "I am," I said, "because I wrote the ending myself." Years passed like wind across the plains, soft then sudden. And somewhere in the slow turning of seasons, I stopped counting the time by what I had lost and started marking it by what I had built. The Stillwell School stood firm on that hill, its stone chimney warm in winter and windows always open in spring. The laughter of children echoed across the land each morning, and at night, the hum of their dreams settled like a hymn over the house. I kept teaching. My voice never aged, even as my bones did. I taught Sadie to read by sound, her fingers sliding over braille pages until she read faster than anyone. Caleb learned how to build furniture by touch. We even had a few sighted children come through our doors, kids whose hearts had been broken in quieter ways. We took them in just the same. Bo stayed beside me, always. He never stopped repairing fence posts or baking cornbread on Saturdays. Never stopped placing fresh-cut sage in a jar by the window. Never stopped asking before touching my hand, even after all those years. We grew older in rhythm, like two trees whose roots tangled underground. On quiet nights, we sat on the porch, listening to the wind tell old stories. He would hum, and I would rest my head against his shoulder and say, "Do you remember the girl I was?" And he would always answer, "I remember the woman you became." I did not need eyes to see the way our life had unfolded. A quilt sewn from sorrow and second chances, each patch stitched with grace. Sometimes I thought about Eldon, about my father, about the girl I once was, too scared to speak, too eager to be chosen, too ashamed to believe she had a name worth saying out loud. But that girl had been carried, through darkness, through betrayal, through silence, and set gently on her feet by the hands of time and one man who never rushed her healing. And now I was the one carrying others. There was a girl named Louisa who came to us after being turned away from 3 other homes. She had a crooked back and spoke to herself when nervous. The townsfolk said she would never learn. But I knew better. She learned the sound of every room in that school. She hummed as she cleaned, counted every plate by touch, and learned to write her name by listening to how I spelled it aloud. When I touched her hand and whispered, "You are enough," she cried in a way I understood deeply. She had been waiting for someone to believe she was more than her scars. Just like I had. I came to see that redemption does not always arrive in grand moments. Sometimes it is a whisper in the dark, a hand that waits instead of pulling, a door that stays open when the world tells you it should shut. And love, it is not the rush of flowers or fever. It is the quiet voice that says, "Take your time." It is the steady man who holds a place for you, not over his shoulder, but beside him. I found peace on that hill. Not the kind that forgets the past, but the kind that weaves it into something whole. I could still hear the children's feet thumping across the porch. I could still smell fresh bread rising. I could still feel the warm weight of Beau's hand resting beside mine, night after night. And though I had lost my sight, I had gained something far deeper. A place, a purpose, a name that would live on through the laughter of the ones I had lifted. Clara Mae Stillwell, teacher, builder, wife by choice, not by trade. And no longer unseen. They said I was blind. And I was. But blindness was never the end of my story. It was the beginning of a deeper kind of sight. I saw the shape of sorrow in silence. I saw how pain folds itself into the corners of a room. I saw how a girl with no voice could become a woman with a mission. I saw that worth is not something you inherit. It is something you reclaim. Beau never gave me freedom. He waited while I found it. He never rescued me. He built a quiet place where I could rescue myself. And in that quiet, we built a life. One of teaching, of healing, of children who laughed without fear. A life where hands found purpose, where voices were not just heard, but believed. I became a name that mattered. Not because a man gave it value, but because I filled it with meaning. Clara Mae Stillwell. I was sold once. But I was never property. I was always someone becoming. If you are listening to this story today and wondering if your voice still matters, if your heart still has a home, let me tell you, it does. You are not too far gone. You are not too broken. You are simply in the part of the story before the light finds you. And when it does, you will rise too. Because even in the dark, we are becoming. If this story touched your heart, I would love to hear from you. What part of Clara's journey stayed with you the most? Leave a comment below and share where you are listening from. And if you believe in second chances, in slow love, and in the strength of quiet women, this story was for you. Stay strong, sister. We see you. We know you.